Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of Out of Left Field. I'm Kevin with Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. How do we follow us?
Hey Kevin. So we are up on all the social media sites. We are out of left field on Facebook. We are at out of LF Pod on X or out of left field podcast. We are the same handle on Instagram. We are on YouTube for the video copies of our episodes. Spreaker is where our audio copies go, and we have a Substack page. So
Yeah.
everything is out of left field podcast, and the X and the Instagram handles are out of LF pod.
Yes. So we were going attempting to go live with this show, and we were having some technical issues. So we decided we're going to record it. Let's just say we struck out on the live, and we had to come back and take another swing. Is that the baseball way to explain this?
Yeah, I guess so. It's early season, sort of for us still, so we'll keep trying. We'll get it right.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, it is the first time in our podcast history that the Mariners and the Blue Jays faced each other. So we are going to recap the series, one being a Mariners fan from and me from a Mariners perspective, for Jonathan from a Blue Jays perspective. And then so we're going to do that. And so we're going to recap the series here. And first of all, before we do that, just quickly, very quickly, because um, congratulations to the men's soccer team. They did a tremendous job. Um, there's a lot of other content that we could talk about, but let's just save the time for everybody. They got they did very well. There's a lot to improve on. There's a lot to step on, but they faced the sixth ranked country in the world at soccer. They got to the round of six. They got to the round of 16. Best showing ever. I think a round of applause for the men's soccer team.
Yep, totally agree. Best showing ever, by quite a margin, and depending on how you look at it, they left a lot on the table. But to me, that's a good thing because it says that this is only the start. And for me, um, the the most important thing for me was seeing how it brought this country together in a very positive way for the last few weeks, and so that was a fun ride. And you know what? And I've said this before, but if we want more people to continue to jump on baseball in this country and grow our favorite sport, then I think it's only right that we jump on the other sports when they're riding a wave. So yeah, good for them.
Yep, absolutely. Let's get into this series between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. And both teams kind of came in a little bit limping into this series. The Blue Jays did have a nice Canada Day moment where they did some really, they celebrated a lot of their memories on Canada Day. Traditional red, brought out Russell Martin, who is probably how do I word this? The new generation face, kind of I don't want to say the new generation. He's not the new face, but he was the sort of the transition from the kind of lull of Blue Jay playoff to kind of sort of being the first match of a revival of the Blue Jays, because it was the Russell Martin, Troy Tulowitzki, David Price acquisitions, Josh Donaldson as well, but really all of the Jose Batista, that era of Blue Jays that sort of lit a match. Edwin Encarnacion, those guys lit a new match for the Blue Jays, sort of in a new era for the Blue
Yeah,
Jays.
yeah, definitely. And for me and people around my age, that was the first time I'd ever seen my favorite team in the playoffs with those 2015, 2016 teams. And those teams were so different than last year's team. Just the massive personalities and star power on those 2015-16 teams. Much older team, and I think kind of the what Russell Martin brought was, I mean, he was the starting catcher, and you need your catcher to kind of be your captain in a lot of ways, and he did nothing but win. I think he only missed the playoffs one or two times in his career. So he showed up, and it was like, okay, time to win, boys. They had a lot of really important people in that room. But yeah, getting it doesn't, a lot of people, those teams don't happen without, and he was one because they needed a catcher to be one of those dudes, and Canadian and a likable personality too. So yeah, um, the you mentioned the Jays Canada Day game. They in the pregame ceremonies they brought back 6 Canadian Blue Jays alums, and they all gave Jays Care, the foundational arm of the Blue Jays, through those players, gave those players $50,000 each to donate or to gift to a Canadian baseball foundation of their choice. So it was great to see a lot of those old faces, and they did a great thing too. So
Yeah. And a historic moment on the field as well as Sean Keyes hit his first major league home run for the Blue Jays during that game on Canada Day. We'll probably be talking about him during the season. But all in all, that's the Blue Jays did come off that win against the New York Mets coming into Seattle. Seattle was kind of limping a little bit too. They did have the win. They did win the series against the Angels. They went 2-1, or they swept the Angels actually. So they weren't really limping, but they won 1-0 against the Angels on Thursday. And there's still a little bit of jitterbugs around the Mariners coming into this. So this is sort of where we're coming in. The Mariners are kind of battling for first place in the American League West. The Blue Jays are at this point kind of looking at a wild card spot. So let's get into game one. It is on Friday. It is Luis Castillo against Dylan Cease. And this game had, well, let's start with let's start with the two significant misses in this series for both teams. George Springer was missing this series because of paternity leave. We congratulate the Springer family on their third child. He's expected to come back for San Francisco. I think they put him on a family emergency medical leave so he could stay a little longer, if I understand that correctly.
yeah, so basically, they had their kid, everything too good. But the way the broadcast described it is it's their third. So now with the third kid in the picture, George was having to corral the other two kids while mom rested. So the way they were saying it is everything is a-okay. They're expecting him back for San Francisco tomorrow, but he just needed an extra couple of days with the family to help settle in. So it was kind of weird that they had to put him on a list called the emergency list, but that's the one it had to. That's just what they had to do, but there was no emergency. So
Yeah. It's just a paternal thing, and I don't think anybody, yeah, that's completely understandable.
paternity list had a limit of 3 days, and so they came to the end of that, and so they had to find another list they could slap them on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, and then there was no Julio Rodriguez. Rodriguez actually got a concussion on Thursday. Just through, no, it was Tuesday, and it was just kind of a ball hit the back of his head. He is now on the 7-day concussion list. He's not expected to return until after the All-Star game. So there was no George Springer in this series. There was no Julio Rodriguez in this series. So couple of key players missing for both teams. We come into Friday, and it's this one had an interesting start to the game in the bottom of the first inning, where I think we have to start here. Randy Arozarena takes a challenge as an ABS challenge, and it is he thinks it's a ball. It's called a strike. He does it again, and he thinks it's a ball. It's called a strike. So the Mariners lose their challenges in the first inning of the game, and this actually does impact the game going forward. Here, we have to, I want to kind of be careful, because I think it's really easy to criticize somebody and say that these are boneheaded decisions. And while I don't like what Randy Arozarena did, I'll touch on something a little later that happened. One of the things I will say, though, there's a few things that kind of came through my mind through this. We weren't at the plate, so we don't know what Randy Arozarena was thinking. But the other thing that I was actually on the deeper level of what I actually was thinking about here in terms of just going forward with the future, these ABS challenges are going to be absolutely fascinating to watch in the playoffs, because if you have two, it is going to be really, really strategic and important when you actually challenge these pitches. I would imagine, I bet, this is my early bet at this point, there's a lot of teams that will not challenge until after the 7th inning. You'll see no challenges until the 7th, and then you're going to see a bunch of challenges after that. That's kind of what it's kind of leaning towards. I don't know what you're seeing, but that's kind of my thought process at this point.
Well, I mean, I think that's the idea, is that you want to ideally leave your challenges unused as late as possible. But when it comes to playoff time, sometimes the game is won and lost early, and you see pitching decisions are much more aggressive. Much moves are made much earlier on the pitching side. So I wouldn't be shocked to see some earlier challenges in the playoffs if there's leverage situations early on. But we'll see how that goes. But like, I could have a take here when it comes to Arozarena burning both of his team's challenges in the first inning. I could come out guns a blazing with a take here, but I don't really have the chance to watch the Mariners consistently until this weekend. I see a game here or there, but this is the first time I've seen them 3 games in a row, 3 days in a row. So like, tell me more. Like, is how successful have the Mariners been on ABS? How good has Randy been? Has there been problems with guys being selfish with their challenges? Like, was this a shock to you?
Randy Rosarena and Josh Naylor seem to be getting the most criticism about the challenge system overall for the Mariners. I don't recall anybody I like as much of Get Baseball as I have watched. I do not believe that there has been anybody that has challenged and lost twice. I think that there's been people that have challenged twice during an at bat, but they've won one or lost one, or they've won both. This is the first time I've seen someone lose both that I have seen. I maybe I'm wrong on that. I haven't like I've watched as much baseball as I can, but I may have missed something. So, but the issue with Randy Roser or ultimately some those are both happen. But yeah, that's the first time I've like him and Josh Naylor seem to be getting the most criticism. I think that's just part of the Randy Rosarena experience. He's an inconsistent player. We'll get into and I think we saw that this weekend. So those two challenges really impacted later in the game, but we'll get there because Andres Jimenez, who is becoming a little bit of a Mariners thorn, will open the scoring. He doubled. Blue Jays get lead 1-0, and then Vladdy Green, in terms of play, don't know if you can blame him a lot for this weekend's adventure. He singles on a line drive. Jimenez scores, and it's 2-0 after the top of the third. So the Blue Jays get off to a really good start. And that turned out to be the rest of the offense for that game. Dylan Cease got the win. The Blue Jays win 2-0. I guess so Cease wins, Castillo loses, Varland the save. There's a few other things that happened in this game, so we'll kind of dig into that. But here, couple of errors for the Mariners. Just Jr. Why am I trying to blank on the guy's name? J.P. Crawford. Sorry, J.P. Crawford. Third base has an error in the first, doesn't hurt him, but the Cole Young one, there was a Cole Young error in the sixth that happened, and then I'll just and then it could have got worse, but Colt Emerson made a pretty big play in early in that game. I believe in that same inning of the third inning, it kind of held the ground there for the Mariners. But as we went on through the game, the bottom of the ninth was very interesting. And because Cal Raleigh came up, and Cal Raleigh was, there was a questionable call, an ABS call. And because they had no challenges, he couldn't challenge, and he struck out in that inning. And it was clearly a frustrating moment for Cal Raleigh and the team. And he hasn't had a great year. He's hitting 160. He coming into this game 8 home runs. So it's kind of a tough moment. Those challenges came back and bit the Mariners really badly, especially in the bottom of the ninth. But I'm kind of talking a little bit Mariners-y. You should probably give the Blue Jays perspective, and I should shut up. And I'm going to look for these ABS challenges stats for Rosarena and see if I can find something here.
Yeah, and to kind of tie a bow on the Rosarena challenge thing, me as kind of an outsider to the Mariners. To me, that it did strike me as selfish. I mean, the rule at this point, they've had half a year to feel it out, and to me, the rule has got to be egregious or leverage. And first inning, 1 out, nobody on, as low leverage as it gets. Okay, you're gonna have a brain cramps brain cramps happen, so you miss one. All right, we can look past it. But after you lose one, you're definitely not using your second one in the first inning, and he did. So to me, I wouldn't have liked it. I'm not an M's fan, but if I were, I don't think I would have liked that. And mm, wonder how Dan Wilson was feeling after that. But um, yeah, you mentioned Sean Keys on the Blue Jays side. Mentioned Sean Keys earlier, and yeah, he's one in the positive column for the Blue Jays right now. He just came up a few days ago, and in game one against Mariners on Friday, he had 2 hits. And as I just pull up his game logs, he came up on June 27th, debuted against Texas, and with a hit and 1 for 4. And then Canada Day, he hit his first major league home run the opposite way, a 3-run home run. And in the series against the Mariners, 2 hits on Friday were his only hits of the series, but a big physical lefty bat, hit 21 home runs in the minors this season, leading to his call-up. And he actually played last year for the Vancouver Canadians High A. So it's been a fairly quick ascent for him. But for a team that's not hitting anything and has had a lot of key hitters regress this year, that's a hopeful development for the Blue Jays for sure, with Keys looking pretty good. Not unlike last year when Addison Barger was sort of on the prospect radar in spring, but he wasn't ready, didn't make the team, came out, I think, late May, but I could be wrong, and ended up hitting 23 home runs. So I believe that was it. I'll check that. But ended up being a big power source. So I had shades of Barger a little bit, probably wishful thinking. But yeah, Dylan Cease in that game Friday night, 7 scoreless. Did his thing. That was peak Dylan Cease right there. There's a little, the book on him is usually strikes the world out, but doesn't often go deep. On Friday, he did 3 hit scoreless, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. He was at his best. That's great. And we'll get into what happened in the rest of the series, but that was a bright spot. Yeah, and I'll toss it back to you with on this note, talking about pitching. I noted on Friday that in the early innings, Luis Castillo was throwing 96, 97. And to me, that was pretty good. I had the impression that Luis Castillo had lost a tick by now. But I was pretty impressed when he came out early, throwing the way he was. What did you think of Castillo on Friday?
I thought that was one of his better outings. His velocity has been picking up a little bit. He did have a dip, but he, like, in terms of his command control, and he was wobbly at the start for sure. There was certainly an opportunity for the Blue Jays to kind of tap some more runs on him, but he regained his footing and kept going. And I think that was probably the most encouraging thing out of that entire game for me, for the Mariners, is Castillo found a way to kind of keep his legs, because if you can get to Luis Castillo early, it's tough, and that has happened a few times. His ERA with this loss is still pretty high, but he did a fantastic job just keeping himself in the game. It was one of his better outings. He's 3-7 with a 4.79 ERA, so that's not exactly spectacular, and kind of been the problem with Luis Castillo is he's been the sixth best pitcher, the sixth best starting pitcher on this whole piggyback, and kind of he faced and he's taken some heat. I mean, Bryce Miller had a phenomenal game, and then Luis Castillo comes in and he loses the game for him. That happened once or twice, right? So it's happened a couple of times that Castillo has come in with this whole piggyback situation, and he has struggled. He's kind of been the worst pitcher, but I think it was really encouraging for me that Castillo kind of was wobbly, but he stood his ground and gave a really good performance. I mean, he goes 6, so nothing to complain about on that one for sure. The offense, on the other hand, for the Mariners was just absolutely anemic. You could really see the face of Cal Raleigh being extremely frustrating on this, especially late, where he couldn't challenge. I mean, there was a challenge that a Rosarena couldn't do, but Cal Raleigh had an opportunity, probably what he wanted to challenge and couldn't. But yeah, extremely frustrating. Cal Raleigh seemed extremely frustrated. And the other encouraging thing for the Mariners was a really solid outing from the bullpen. Ferreira's a walk and a strikeout. Michael Rucker, who had a really tough game against Cleveland about a week or so ago on the road. He one hit. He doesn't. But that's it. And Nick Davila comes in 1 inning and a clean sheet. So ultimately, you come away allowing 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. Not bad. However, I do think that the Blue Jays bullpen does deserve some credit for this game. And a much maligned pitcher, Jeff Hoffman, comes in a pretty tense bottom of the 8th inning, strikes out 2, and then Louis Varland comes in and strikes out 2 as well. The Blue Jays bullpen strikes out 4, and I think cinches the win. And
yeah, and in past episodes, I've been talking about how the Blue Jays needed to make Varland the closer, full stop, and it appears they've done that now. That was his 18th save on Friday, and Jeff Hoffman looked good. And you know what? Jeff Hoffman, when he's not in the 9th inning, is a very good reliever who strikes out a lot of hitters. And Louis Varland, like I said, 18 saves, and Hoffman now that he's turned into a high leverage guy, but not the 9th inning. He has allowed an earned run in only 1 of his last 13 outings. So he's slotted. It looks like both of them are slotted where they should be, and it's working a lot better. So yeah, you're right. That they were both good on Friday night, and I think the Blue Jays finally have their 2 big arms at the back of the pen slotted correctly.
yeah. before there was a couple of other things to talk about in this game. The first thing I actually wanted is Dylan Cease in the Cy Young conversation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Are people talking about it in Toronto?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well. I mean, I live in Victoria, so I'm not exposed to as much
Are
of
they?
it.
So I'll reword the question. Are they talking about it in the Blue Jays land?
Yeah, you see it online, and as the season gets later, it's getting more talk on broadcast. So, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Some other things that happened during this game. One of the things that I also was thinking about was about around the challenges. And if you think that this is a ridiculous thought, you can tell me it is. Do you think check swings should be challenged?
I've heard that talked about, and I think I should check this, but I feel like they're trialing something in the minors. My quick response, if you were to ask me that question, is tell me what the definition is, because there isn't. But I can try to check this on the fly, but I feel like I've heard that they're trying to come up with a definition of a check swing, and either are trialing it in the minors, or want to at some point. I'll just look it up. Yeah, it's one of the it's a loophole. Yeah,
Because
there has been no concrete definition.
the reason I ask is there was two situations on Friday night where I think if JP Crawford had an opportunity that Kirk did the appeal for the check swing, and the umpire said he went around, and I really felt like JP Crawford disagreed. And then there was another situation, I think that I believe it was the same batter or another batter after that one, where it was another check swing, and I think that they said he did not go around, and Pete Walker's face told a lot of disagreed. And it was like maybe we need to have the discussion around the check swing, because I think it's kind of it is fascinating, and it's such a subjective thing. But if we're going to allow the ABS challenges, I wonder if we have to go into the check swing. I know it's subjective, but I also don't know if it's very fair to ask an umpire from 90 feet away to remember if a check swing, if he caught it right or not.
So looking at it here, in the AAA Pacific Coast League, they are trialing a challenge system for check swings. Check swing is officially classified as a strike if the bat head exceeds 45 degrees parallel to the foul lines from the plate. Challenges: two teams start with two challenges. They can challenge either a ball strike call or a swing no swing call, but cannot challenge both on the same pitch.
Okay.
When a challenge is initiated, the Hawkeye bat tracking visualization is displayed on the video board, and the call is confirmed. Okay, so same thing as ABS. Defensive teams and catchers can still appeal a non-swing to the base umpires without using a challenge.
Interesting. Okay. Meanwhile, there were a couple of other things you wanted to get into, including a cool moment with Kaz and Ichiro. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I just kind of before we leave Friday, I just kind of wanted to back out big picture a little bit, because it's been a tough year for Blue Jays fans, and it's pretty stunning how quickly the World Series buzz has evaporated. Um, they didn't even make it till July, and the goodwill around this team sound from what I can pick up from um, seeing online and whatever. It seems like the World Series goodwill around this team is gone. And so it seems like they've squandered a lot of their World Series bump. But Friday night was fun. And that's because, yes, we expect good things from the Jays fans when they go to Seattle. But that was over and above what I was expecting. I think I told you last episode that I've done the Jays in Seattle trip, and typically, I think the crowd on Friday is good, but there's a lot of Jays fans who can't make it down on Friday night. So the Saturday night crowd is the best one, and then Sunday starts thinning out again a little bit. But I looked it up, and actually before that, it just watching the game on the Sportsnet feed with Dan Schulman and Joe Siddle, you could hear the buzz um, on their mics, and Dan's call just had a little bit of that little hint of the big game gravitas to it that he pulls out in October, and just seeing the Jays and the Mariners on the same field, it just it wasn't, but it kind of felt like a playoff game, and it kind of brought back a little bit of that juice. So it was really cool. And yeah, I looked up what the crowd was on Friday night. There's 45,000 people there on Friday night. It was actually the biggest crowd of the series. And the way Schulman was describing it, it was basically sounded like third base half was Jays fans, first base half was Mariners fans. So yeah, it was fun to have some real juice back for a series, but especially Friday. But yeah, you teased one thing that some cool things happened in this series. And on Friday, the Sportsnet broadcast was talking about how Blue Jays third baseman Kaz Okamoto met Ichiro in batting practice on Friday, and that's really cool. I love hearing those stories, and I didn't see any pictures released publicly at the two meeting, but of course, Ichiro, a Japanese baseball legend, icon, however you want to say it, um, legend in Seattle. Um, I imagine that's a huge deal for Kaz Okamoto, a Japanese star, the present to meet Ichiro. Um, so we didn't see any pictures of it. Not that I found, but yeah, that's really cool to hear about that. And whenever I hear about Ichiro, I'm always seeing him still on the field in uniform, taking fly balls. Um, you follow them regularly. Is he still just part of the furniture around there?
Yeah, yeah. He's not always out in the public, but he was at the Randy Johnson ceremony. He's kind of always around. Yeah, he lives in the area. We just don't always see him publicly He doesn't. Like, we don't always, but we know he's there. He's sort of part of the furniture. Of course, they had the statue that came out of Ichiro earlier this year as well. So he's becoming a little bit more of a presence. The one thing I will say about the crowd, because Dave Softy Mahler and Dave Mahler from Seattle talked about how kind of embarrassing it is from the Seattle perspective. And then you did see some Mariner messages about how annoying it is. And I get it from your perspective that you're kind of loving the Canadian invasion. I struggle with this a little bit because this is sort of a credit to the Blue Jay fans, and it's a discredit to the Mariners. Let's be honest here. The Seattle Mariners haven't given this organization, the fan base, enough to cheer about over the years, and it allowed the Blue Jay fan base to do the Canadian invasion. And I think now that the Mariners are a little bit better of a team, I think you're going to start to see a lot more pushback against this. I mean, you look at the playoffs, I think that there was a lot of you Blue Jay fans that seemed to think that you were just going to walk into Seattle and just grab a seat and have some popcorn and watch some playoff. And I think a few of you were a little surprised about what was not going to happen there. And you're a bigger fan base than the Mariners. You've got a country, they've got a small city in the Pacific Northwest. You are going to win most fan battles. You will. I cannot say that we're a bigger fan base than the Blue Jays. I would be an idiot to say that. But I do think that this Mariner fan base is going to start to push back a little bit. There's some suggestion about the idea of just not allowing people in the area code that without the area code to purchase tickets, which the Seahawks have done over the years, not allowing the 49ers. I don't know. I think that it's a tough thing for the Mariners to do because this is a moneymaker for them. And
I don't think they'd want to do that. That's their biggest selling series of the year, probably.
Well, the Yankees and the Red Sox too. Don't forget them; they're big fan bases, and if the Cubs come in, but also the other thing is a lot of people from where we are goes across the coast and watch Mariner, and there are Mariner fans like me that want to go across. So you can't really do that. I don't know what the real solution is. They have extended the price. They've the what do you call it? Pricing, raising prices. They did raise the prices for those tickets, but so they are expensive, but people are still going to go, and it's kind of.
I mean, just kind of tying a bow on this one, and we've talked about the big picture of this, of why this happens before, but I was expecting it to be a little bit less from Blue Jays fans this time, because of the positive distraction of the World Cup going on right now, and also the negative of the political landscape. That just had me assuming, those two things just kind of had me assuming this year would be a little bit less of the Canadians coming down. But also on the other side, I expected more of Mariners fans this year. They just had the playoff series, so you'd think they'd want to make a point of getting to the rematch. And it was July 4th weekend. Like, isn't that part of tradition down there yet? The ballpark on July 4th weekend, and so yeah, it shocked me, but it shocked me that it was more Blue Jays and weaker Mariners than I was expecting. But
I think it got better as the weekend went on. I think ultimately the Seattle community does not fully trust this organization yet. That's
And
the
al-
issue.
and also, I think one of those days, maybe it was the Saturday. I think one of those days, Seattle was hosting a World Cup game at the same time.
No, they weren't. That
Okay,
game is on Monday. Monday,
that's what it was.
yeah, this afternoon. If you're for those that are listening, yeah.
That's what it. Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, not to spend too much time on that, but
yeah, yeah. There's yeah. Maybe next time the Blue Jays and the Mariners meet, I think I have some theories of some things that the Mariners have done that I think have ended up costing them some fans um, on the Canadian border. But that's a whole other. We'll move on. But then we do go to the 4th of July, and uh, also, we should mention that the U.S. World Cup team was at the Mariners game at the game on Friday, signing autographs, and Cal Raleigh got a signed autograph catcher guard, which I thought looked really cool. There was one I guess there was one that was an autographed one, and then there's another one with the Statue of Liberty on it. It looks really cool. He gave that to Mitch Garver, but this is just I want to start here because this is something that there's a lot of Mariner fans that are really upset and not happy about Dan Wilson. They question his strategic decisions. But I want to point out something here before we move into this game, or a couple of things. That Randy Arozarena challenge situation could have blown up right in their face for the rest of the series. You know that there would have been you didn't say Dan Wilson doesn't show any emotion, but Cal Raleigh kind of showed some emotion. I think he's overall frustrated with where he is at during the series or during the season, pardon me. But they didn't let it come out publicly. And I think that that's a massive credit to Dan Wilson and his emotional handling of this situation. We know, by the way, let's not forget that Randy Arozarena and Cal Raleigh had some tension from the World Baseball Classic in terms of not shaking hands.
that's all right.
We know, and this could have been a disaster. But did we not see a better Randy Arozarena for Saturday and Sunday? And we'll get into Saturday here. It is the Mariners and the Blue Jays. It is Logan Gilbert versus Shane Bieber. This is Shane Bieber's third start of the year. And they get to Bieber. Bieber's off to a good start. He gets it to 2 outs in the bottom of the second inning. And then all of a sudden, the Blue Jays got going. We get a Victor Robles single, and Cole Young scores. And then Randy Arozarena, he of the two flubbed up challenges in the bottom of the first inning, hits a grand slam, making it 5-0. And then Dominic Canzone hits in the bottom of the fifth, a 2-run shot, making it 7-0. And then Canzone then singles a ground ball. Emerson scores. It's 8-0. Then Cal Raleigh, which I think was a very significant point for the Mariners here, he hits a home run. It's a 3-run shot. It is 11-0. The final score. Certainly heard a little bit more Mariner noise and Blue Jay noise in the crowd. But the Bats this was one of their best offensive games of the year. They almost hit the cycle of home runs, which is they only missed out on a solo home run. They get a 2-run home run, they get the grand slam, and then they get the 3-run home run. And they have done that twice in their history. The 1999, they did it. It was A-Rod, Mike Cameron, or it was Edgar Martinez and A-Rod against the Minnesota Twins. And in 2000 against the Blue Jays, A-Rod, Mike Cameron, Jay Buhner. A-Rod hit three, a double grand slam and a 3-run. Buhner hit a solo. And then Mike Cameron, I believe, hit two-run home runs, I believe, is how that worked. So they almost completed a kind of another cycle of home runs, but they did get three, and every Mariner got on base. And Logan Gilbert was just fantastic in this game. He allows one hit in 7 innings. He retired. I think at one point he retired. He allowed one hit, which was kind of just a muff hit. 7 strikeouts. He just seemed so in control, just so calm. He was walking off that field with a lot of swagger. They call him Walt. There's a personality he's called Walter, Logan Gilbert, and it's sort of just kind of, there's this cool and casual kind of Logan Gilbert who is like your buddy, and then there's Walter, who just turns into a beast of intensity on the mound. And boy, did he have it. He was just amazing. And he has been so good the last little while, by the way. 30% strike rate of the last little while here. He allowed 11 home runs in his first 10 starts. I think he's allowed 3 since. I'll confirm that number, but that was just a fantastic performance from Logan Gilbert. It was a fantastic performance from the Seattle Mariners all around. It felt like a little bit of a release for the Mariners, just for their frustrations of not being able to score a lot of runs the last couple of games, and they just let it out. Cal Raleigh let it out. I think that was massively important, and we'll get into that a little later, including another game. But yeah, cathartic for the Mariners.
Yeah, and yeah, Gilbert had 4 2/3 no hit bid.
Yeah,
and the first hit was a blooper into shallow center field, but potentially playable for Victor Robles if he would have dove in for it. But he stays on his feet and lets it drop. And the camera showed Gilbert's face when it drops, and he was not happy. And I don't blame him. And that just kind of raised his Spockian eyebrow a little bit, that Robles wouldn't have laid out to try to protect the no-hit bid. And it was another small thing. And again, I'm somebody who doesn't watch them every day, but just another small thing after Friday with the two first inning challenges, which I thought came off kind of selfish, and then Robles not laying out to try to protect his pitcher's no hitter, and the pitcher not looking happy. There was just some things when I was watching the Mariners from the other side of the field, so to speak. There's some parts of their game that just appear out of sync. Maybe they're not all. Yeah, I won't say it that way. It just yeah, something seems maybe out of sync with them. That's the way they look from the outside. I don't know what your experience is with that.
I can see why. I mean, I still think there's still a lot of frustration in this Mariners locker room with the way that they've started. They haven't been. It's been a kind of a, even though they're in first in the West, I think there's a lot of wonkiness going on, and there's probably some quiet tension. I have no doubt there's probably some tension in that locker room. And I think that the starting pitching staff has done an unbelievable job keeping the Mariners in games. But I think at times, if I'm a Mariner, and I think I've said this before, the Mariners pitching staff, starting pitching staff, has every right to be upset with some of the other things that have happened within this team. The whole thing about the piggyback and the miscommunication and the handling of that, the like blown leads, like the pitching staff has carried the team. So I could see why Logan Gilbert would be upset if Victor Robles didn't make the effort to make that. You're getting an opportunity in center, which is a tremendous opportunity for you, and with Julio not there. But ultimately, they just dialed down and they went to work, and they played that was one of their best home games of the year. So yes, not a great look for Victor Robles, but ultimately one hit. Not much to complain about on the Mariners side for that game.
Yeah, on the Jays side, Bieber still hasn't found his form consistently coming back from rehab. Everything missed on the plate on Saturday. All his misses were in the hitting zone, and he got punished for it with a 5 spot in the second inning. So that was another clunker. One Canadian baseball moment we had on Saturday. I guess I should close the line on Bieber. 4 innings, 7 earnings on 6 hits, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. Canadian baseball moment on Saturday is Adam Mako faces Josh Naylor in the 5th inning and got him to ground out to second base. An aside on Josh Naylor that kind of made me smile this weekend was with his acrobatics at first base. His big, proud Baseball Canada tattoo on his right arm got some airtime this weekend. So it's cool. A guy of that stature has that pride for the Baseball Canada program, and that was kind of fun seeing 2 World Baseball Classic teammates for Canada face off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. From a Blue Jays perspective, there wasn't much to say on Saturday. It was a clunker from beginning to end.
A couple other things I did want to touch on from the Mariners. I forgot. Sorry. The relationship between Cal Raleigh and Logan Gilbert, just they're really close. Cal called a lot more fastballs than usual for him. They just have a kind of a unique relationship. They go back a long ways, and just you can see that friendship between them. I thought it was really cool. And this was sort of a funny thing from the Mariners podcast. Buddy Kennedy made his debut with the Seattle Mariners. Do you know what his real name is?
I don't.
It is Clifton Lewis Kennedy III.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I can understand why you go with it. Just call me Buddy. His dad was Bud, and I believe his grandpa played with the Milwaukee Brewers. He never got a World Series. Buddy Kennedy does have a World Series ring. I believe it with the Dodgers. So that was kind of just a funny thing that I wanted to point out. After the game, some interesting news as well. The All-Star players were named. 4 Blue Jays: Dylan Cease, Louis Varland. Oh, 3, sorry. Dylan Cease, Louis Varland, and Vlad. No, 4. Because Ernie Clement is on the team, right? So there's 4. Dylan Cease, Louis Varland, Vlad Guerrero, and Ernie Clement. Randy Rosarena is the lone Mariner All-Star. The bigger story probably in all of this is Vlad says is opting out for back tightness. Now, Julio Rodriguez opted out last year, so no criticism to Vlad to opt out of here. I don't think that is a. I actually would argue that that's a pretty mature thing to do, and I understanding his knowing of his team. So I will give him credit for that for sure.
He won the fan vote at first base, and we talked about that last week. And in my the way I see it, everything worked out for the best. The fans voted him in as they're allowed to do, and he had it when that went online that he was voted in. It sure felt like, 2 posts later on my Twitter feed was the report saying he's backed out or he's declined the invite. So part of it is I'm sure he had the good sense to know that now wasn't the time to go. But also reporting that came out of Blue Jays camp, probably the real reason he's not going and the relevant topic for Jays fans is that he cited his back tightness as the reason he's not going. And they've been talking about it for a few days on the Jays broadcasts. And you can't fault Vlad for lack of effort, lack of work to try to get out of whatever funk he's in this year. Reports have him taking 100 swings pregame and 200 swings postgame every day to try to identify the problem. Now, that's definitely working hard. Is it working smart? Don't know. There's evidence to say no. But I can't, that's why I can't jump down his throat about, being lazy or anything, because he's clearly not. But he's pulling out of the All-Star game with back tightness, and so the overwork to try to figure it out is literally hurting him and is prolonging his power outage. So feels like we're in a vicious cycle with Vlad. He's not doing anything. He's overworking himself to fix it, but overworking himself is hurting himself and making it worse. So yeah, that back tightness story was not good news for Jays fans.
No. One other thing that happened in this game that I'm just curious about. Braden Fisher throws behind Colt Emerson. At first glance, I thought that it was just a bad pitch. Was there any intent to that?
I didn't pick up on anything. I can't imagine there was anything to that.
It just felt like a bad pitch. And if I think if the Mariners felt there was any intent, you might have saw a response today. But
it's nothing.
Yeah. Also, kudos to Miles Straw, 3 up, 3 down in the bottom of the 8th. That's he's throwing 45 miles an hour. Cal made a joke about it at the end. Yeah, we needed to do better at the bottom of the 8th, but kudos.
Well, that's the Tyler Heineman rule.
Yeah,
like Tyler Heineman was the Blue Jays fans' favorite blowout pitcher, and he got himself DFA'd, so Miles Straw's got to step in.
Yeah. So that's Saturday, series tied at 1. Then we get to Sunday, and this one is Emerson. This is an interesting matchup. 2 young pitchers, Trey Savage for the Blue Jays, Emerson Hancock for the Mariners. lots of talk about both of their deliveries, especially Savage's with his kind of Mike Tyson over kind of his throw a bit different. Emerson Hancock has been kind of toying with his to be a bit more distinct as well. But so certainly a matchup I think we will probably see a few times over the years. But this was an interesting game. Trey Savage's first three. It was Emerson Hancock gets out of the first with under 10 pitches. Trey Savage, first three batters, he gets to a 2-ball count on all three of them. And Savage is kind of battling at the beginning of the game. Like he's getting to a lot of 3-1 counts. And Hancock is just mowing down the Blue Jays. I'm going to give you Savage a lot of credit though. He hung in there. Like what's it? How many starts has he had this year? Because it's not many, is it? He hasn't. I mean, he's just came back fairly recently, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he had a delayed start to his season. I'm just navigating to his page now to get that number.
Anyway, while you do that, I will go through kind of the summary. The Mariners score 1 in the third. I kind of felt they should have came out with more. They got the sacrifice fly from Nathan Lucas, but Robles starts out with a double. Rosarena gets, and then they get another base runner on. So they have 2 on with nobody out, with kind of their key players on, and it was Cal Raleigh that gets the sacrifice fly. He hits that hard, but a really good play by Nathan Lucas to keep it, to make the catch, get the out, and Robles scores. It's 1-0 Mariners, but I do feel it should be a little bit more. They should have came out with a little bit more out of that inning. I was a little concerned that this would come back to haunt them a little bit. It turns out not to, because we get to the bottom of the fourth. There's an error on Ernie Clement. Is this on Clement or Vlad? I think probably a little bit of both, because it goes off Vlad's glove, hits Cole Young, and then Mitch Garver hits just after that. He hits a 2-run home run to left, making it 3-0. And then at the bottom of the eighth, Josh Naylor hits a ball off the third base bag, and Rosarena is running, and it makes it 4-0. Again, kind of felt they left some runs on the table, though. Overall, I like 4 is fine, but kind of felt they should have had a little bit more in this game. Was kind of my perception. But all in all, got a great performance from Emerson Hancock, and who goes 7 innings and is, let's look at his line here. There's 7 innings, 2 hits, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. Gabe Spire, 1 inning, clean. Anthony Munoz, 1 hit. He's starting to get a little better. 1 strikeout, does not get the save because it's 4 runs. But that is, that's kind of the Mariners story in a nutshell. A couple of other things. We talk about bad challenges. Mitch Garver, early in the game, takes off his equipment, assuming that he's going to walk. That was a clear strike. Kind of wasn't sure what Mitch Garver was thinking there, but that was a miss. And then Kyle Raleigh, a questionable challenge on a ball call that was clearly underneath the plate or clearly low. So wasn't too impressed with the Mariners' challenges in this game either, but it didn't ultimately turn out to cost them. So.
Yeah, for the Jays, not much positive again. Back-to-back shutouts. That's the Those are the 7th and 8th times they've been shut out this year. And it also brings their consecutive scoreless inning streak for the offense to 24, which is their longest since 2019. Last May 28th, 26th through the 28th, they had 20 straight scoreless innings from the offense before Bo Bichette hit a home run in Texas to win the game, and that really ignited last year's turnaround towards that division title run. But that doesn't look like it's coming this year. 18 and 39 the Blue Jays are when they score less than 5 runs. Pitching gives up a lot of home runs. That's been a thing for a couple of years now. The Mariners had a lot of home runs this weekend. And that's probably not a good thing, letting its struggling offense start to feel good about itself a little bit. Yeah, it just this series overall just confirmed, and deepened my feeling of what this year is this year. You know what? I'll add this detail. When the Blue Jays fell behind 5-0 on Saturday in the Bieber game, it kind of becomes it kind of becomes eye guy time for the bats, where guys go up there trying to get their numbers, and it's probably a combination of trying to hit a 5-run home run or just get your numbers. And that being down 5-0 in the second game on Saturday, early, might have put them in the rut that the bats were in, especially in the last 2 games of quick outs. I think there was 8 or 9 times they were retired on the first 2 pitches of an at bat. So we're talking about, a lot of selfish at bats. It looks like on the Blue Jays side, no plan. Didn't look like they had a plan offensively. They didn't stick to it anyway. Yeah, it was nothing good. So to me, this team is not going anywhere without consistent starting pitching, and they have no offense. So I don't see a future for this team. So for me, going big picture, now you're less than a month away from the trade deadline. Now it's about Kevin Gausman. Are you going to re-sign him early? Because he's your best pending free agent. So for me, it's re-sign Kevin Gausman or trade him. It's one or the other, because the Jays have a few high-priced pending free agents, but none of them are producing. So I don't think there's going to be any real value in trades for anyone but Gausman. So you find out if he's willing to re-sign, or you trade something and get something for him, and try to reload for next year and try to contend again next year. But they're running a $300 million payroll. So, and with the expanded wildcard format now with 3 wildcards, no one's really out of it. So, I don't think there's a world where they sell for all those reasons. But I sure hope there's a I sure hope they don't buy, because this team isn't worth giving up any futures for. Um, yeah. Um, One thing that slipped into my head as Game 3 was ending on Sunday afternoon was I remembered that it was in Seattle in July of 2022 when the Blue Jays were swept in a 4-game series. And after that sweep, Charlie Montoyo was fired and John Schneider was elevated to manager and began his tenure. So, um, it was a weekend like this, that one a little bit worse, but it was a weekend like this in Seattle that caused changes and caused the job of Charlie Montoyo a few years ago. So we're at the point where, kind of stunningly, the offense has totally abandoned its identity and plan that they had last year that made them good. Pitching's not delivering. Um, I can't rule out changes. It's stunning that we're at this point, but and before we started recording tonight, I saw some pretty sharp comments and a story from Ernie Clement. Here it is. Here, you play like crap. You don't play as a team. It's really tough to win baseball games that way. So we got to start playing for each other and playing a lot better. That's the complete. That they were awesome at all those things last year, and this team, it's starting to sound like they're fractured. So these are the kinds of times where changes might happen. As crazy as it is, maybe David Popkin's offensive philosophy isn't being listened to anymore. Maybe John Schneider's been tuned out. So, yeah, I could. Yeah. You can take the reins from me, but yeah, it's a pretty depressing moment. I can't rule out changes, but I'll let you take it for a minute. But I do at some point here have a historical reference that could be relevant here.
Um, uh, there was a, yeah. Well, for me, a few things kind of came out of just my observation. I just felt all series the Blue Jays were just not taking pitches. And I remember really when you look back at the ALCS, when the Blue Jays were taking pitches and pitching and like when they were in that high contact rate zone that got them to the World Series, they were a tougher team to beat than when they were getting aggressive. And I just felt that this like Logan Gilbert threw 77 pitches in 6 innings. Emerson Hancock threw 29 pitches in 3 innings. This team just does the Blue Jays didn't really make any of the Mariners pitchers work. Like Gabe Spire, a 5 pitch inning in the eighth today. Munoz, like I think was like 10 to 15. And it was just telling when Mason Fluharty was in the bottom of the eighth, he threw 25 pitches. The Mariners were making that Blue Jay staff work. Like you can say that Trey Savage struggled, and I think that there's some truth to that. But I also think that one of the things that you have to do is you've got to give your pitchers some time to get that, like, some rest.
Yeah.
And it just felt like Savage had to do a lot more than he needed to in this game. I felt they got to Shane Bieber too, and the Blue Jays never really responded. Like, they didn't really make a Mariner pitcher work this entire series. It
Yeah.
was a pretty easy weekend for Mariner pitching overall.
Yep.
So the other thing that absolutely stunned me was Alejandro Kirk is hitting 182.
Yeah, he missed 70 games, I think. So he's only played like 15 games or something, I think. So he hasn't gotten anything going yet. We've talked a lot about challenges, but one thing Kirk has always done, or Kirk does great. Well, he's always been a great receiver and framer, if you want to say it that way. But his challenge rate as a catcher is 71%. So, and we were talking about Russell Martin before, and they have a good catcher for the future. They have two good catchers, as we talked about Brandon Valenzuela before in previous episodes. But yeah, with the bats, that's what I was talking about. There's no team concept to their at bats. It's just guys swinging away with no plan, and guys probably just looking out for their own numbers. There's no. Last year it was all team at bats, long at bats to wear the pitcher down for the next guy. Like you said, give your own pitcher a sit, and there's none of it. So it's pretty bleak right now. But while I'm thinking of it, the Blue Jays are on this crazy roller coaster the last, I guess, 4 years, because it was 23 they were in the playoffs, 24 they bottomed out, 74 wins. Last year they found it, and they go to the World Series. This year they stink again. So they're going up and down every year the last 4 years. And that kind of, I remember the San Francisco Giants World Series teams. They had a similar road. 2009, good year, 88 wins, but they missed the playoffs. 2010, a World Series. 2011, missed the playoffs. 86 wins, but not good enough to make the playoffs. 2012, World Series. 2013, 76 wins. 2014, World Series. So there's another team that did these crazy swings, and the way the Jays are set up organizationally, they want to contend, and they have pieces. We talked about the catchers. They have Savage. I still think Vlad is going to earn that contract he has. He's the cornerstone. They have a lot of good pieces towards winning. They found their closer in Louis Verlin. They have a lot of money coming off the books in the offseason. So if they can make some wise decisions in the offseason, I think they're still set up to keep this winning window open. So it shouldn't be all doom and gloom. It's a tough year, I think, but I think they're going to take a run at restarting this thing next year.
Well, as you continue the road trip for the Blue Jays, let me look at the schedule here for the Blue Jays. Here, give me a boop. Did I do that? Oh, okay. The Blue Jays do go to San Francisco next. Of course, they start this week, and then they finish the stretch of the All Star break in San Diego. So, there is an opportunity to make a little bit of hay here, especially with a struggling Giants team and kind of a struggling Padres team, but definitely a struggling Giants team. So you could see there's some possibilities there. But yeah, it just doesn't. I mean, yeah, like if I was a Blue Jays fan, I would come away with this series pretty frustrated with the effort. Um, really, even the game on Friday, that there's an argument that could have been a blowout, and you didn't take advantage. I think, unfortunately, coming away this series with just 2 runs, I think, from a Blue Jays perspective, is disappointing. But from the Mariners' perspective, 5-1 after this homestand, they are a really strong home team, and but this is the challenge is going on the road, and they're facing a very interesting Miami Marlins team on Tuesday, who had a perfect game on coming in Sacramento against the Athletics and almost lost the game 9-8. Yes, that's right. It was a perfect game for Yuri Perez. They take him out and it's 9-8. But just going to be very interesting. And then you get the Tampa Bay Rays, who are the best team in the American League right now. So the Mariners at home are a really good team. The Mariners on the road are not a good team. So this, to me, it's great that they went 5-1 in this road homestand, but I do want to see a 3-3, at least a 3-3 series against Miami and Tampa, who are 2 really good baseball teams. Tampa Bay, we know, is a really good team, but Miami is an up and coming team that's getting a little bit. I think, they come out of June with 20 wins. They are feeling very confident. I think it's going to be an interesting road trip. I just, the home Mariners, it feels like they're Logan, they're Walter at home, they're Logan on the road. So we need more Walter on the road. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, what I saw from them is, by the way, during this series, I think it was before Saturday. I think it was Saturday, they were scheduled to piggyback, and they went away from that.
Yes.
And they gave a full start, and they said that they're not going to piggyback through the All-Star game. So there's some change there in how they're going about things. But for me, getting a look at them, they have lots of starting pitching, and they did last year, and they still do. And to me, they look like they can win the American League if they have the pitching, but can they get enough from their big bats? They've had the numbers, I can look at the numbers. I don't watch them as much as you do, but numbers are down for Raleigh, Naylor, and Arozarena. So can they get enough? If the pitchers do what they can do, can they get enough from their run producers, and can they play clean baseball physically and mentally? Because we saw blips from them in the field this weekend, and of course we talked a lot about the challenges. If they get enough from their marquee bats and they play clean, I think the Mariners can win the American League. because we haven't brought up the Yankees, and
Oh,
the Yankees are doing what the Yankees do in the second half of the year. They're 1-9 in their last 10, so that would leave. I think the Rays are a serious team, so to me that leaves the Mariners and the Rays.
yeah, could be. It could be, but don't count out the Texas Rangers who are hanging in there as well. And Aaron Judge is coming back. You can't count out the Yankees necessarily. So, and then you got the trade deadline. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Now, you mentioned the Mariners pitching probables for the Marlins series. Tuesday, it's Wu. Wednesday, it's Kirby. Thursday, it's Miller. Other significant news that's coming out of or some interesting news also coming out of from Daniel Kremer. The Mariners are promoting Lazaro Montez and Michael Arroyo. Montez, their number 3 prospect, Arroyo to their number 4 prospect, to AAA Tacoma, which is interesting. I suspect we're going to hear something about Cade Anderson very soon, who is completely in control of AA. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's something else to keep an eye on. The one other thing I think we both wanted to talk about this. So if I just step in and bring this up, I don't think that I'm not stepping on your toes. Hopefully, it's John Olerud. Was at the game
Yep.
today. John Olerud is promoting a. It doesn't really seem like John Olerud is completely focused on the baseball anymore. He's doing a project helping with his wife and his sister-in-law. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank for what the name is at this point. But
So I have their website up right now, and so he was at the Jays Mariners game on Sunday, and before the game, they did a Mariners Jays alumni game for the Jordan Fund,
yeah,
which was founded by John and Kelly Olerud, inspired by their daughter Jordan, who was born with a rare chromosome disorder. The fund is going towards supporting families of children with significant disabilities. So some really worthwhile work there from John Olerud. But it was cool to see him. He was in the booth with Ryan Roland Smith on the Mariners call, and he sent out a tweet about watching Olerud when he was with the Blue Jays, and Johnny O is one of those players who has a significant part of history for both the Blue Jays and the Mariners. So he's kind of our kind of guy.
yeah,
1990 through 96 with the Blue Jays. But his signature year with the Blue Jays was 93, when he hit 363 with 24 and 107. Was hitting 400 into July that year. 114 walks for 473 on base for the whole year. So a part of both of the Blue Jays World Series teams, and then he was with the Mariners from 2000 till 2004. So of course he was on the 116 win team in 2001. So that was cool to see him at the park this weekend.
yeah. The Ryan Roland Smith part. I just to add to it, Ryan Roland Smith has said John Olerud was his favorite player, like you said, Jonathan. But also kind of a very cool moment, just in the broadcast on the Mariner side on Peacock, is they threw back to Aaron Goldsmith said, let's go back to the old VHS machine. And they showed the Joe Carter touch 'em all home run that they in 93 when they beat the Phillies. So it's an interesting synergy between the two organizations, kind of how it's just kind of fascinating how they're kind of connected in a weird way. Of course, they joined the league 50 years ago, and there's kind of just this interesting synergy between the two organizations. It's really fascinating. And to see Brian Rowland Smith kind of grow up a John Olerud fan. It was a really cool moment. It was good to see Olerud. He didn't go to the Blue Jays booth.
I don't think so.
No, okay. Yeah, I had the game kind of on silent at work, so wasn't really sure. But yeah, it was a cool moment. All in all, I guess, yeah, the takeaways, the Mariners take 2 or 3. And that's that for the series. I just want to bring up one quick news item. Other than the Blue Jay series, C.O. Buckner announced that he would retire at the end of the year. I just umpire C.O. Buckner. I know that a lot of people are very angry at umpires, but he did have a pretty lengthy career. I did just want to shout that out. That's the end of his career, and he's probably the ABS challenge is probably one of those things that could be something that guys like Buckner kind of weed that guy out of the system. We'll see. I'm not criticizing him. I'll just leave the opinions of many to them for that. But
I've never been one to pile on umpires or sports officials. For the most part, their job is harder than most people realize, and they're better than most people realize. Tip cap to him for a great career. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we need to get into? I think we kind of did a pretty expansive job.
Yeah, I think we're good. You covered the Blue Jays on deck. They're going to San Francisco and San Diego, I believe. I believe it's Kevin Gausman on Monday against one of his old teams in San Francisco. The road trip continues for the Jays, and I believe they're still just 3 back of the wild card. Yeah, 3 back. So in this weird, mushy middle wild card world, the Jays still aren't out of it. So.
And the Mariners are in first, a game ahead of the Texas Rangers. So that's that. All right, let's leave it there. How do we follow us again? A game and a half ahead of the Texas Rangers, by the way. Sorry, my mistake.
So our socials, Out of Left Field on Facebook, Out of Left Field Podcast on X and Instagram, or our handle there is Outa LF Pod. Our episodes live on video on YouTube, on audio on Spreaker, and we have a Substack as well. So everything is Out of Left Field Podcast.
And you can follow us individually at KEVOLE or at Hodgy Speaks, HODGYSPEAKS. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.